What is going on, everyone? My name is Andy. Welcome to another FPL video. Today it's the Game Week 35 preview. We'll also be taking a quick look back at Game Week 34, unfortunately. Just to be consistent, I've got to talk about it, even though it was a train wreck for a lot of us. Some poor decisions, some things that kind of went against us. And yeah, just an overall bad game week. And obviously then we'll take a look to Game Week 35 and all the talking points for that. So let's start with Game Week 34. It was awful. 39 points. Obviously there was only the double game weeks for Brighton and Cardiff, so it wasn't a massive game week anyway, but 39 points is still awful. I fell from 10,625 to 15,180, so about 4,500 drop there, which is annoying at this stage because I got close to 10k last year and then dropped back by the end. It feels like the same thing's going to happen now, so fingers crossed for Game Week 35. And up to 2,073 points. Let's talk about the big one, Duffy. I've had a few messages saying people will never listen to my advice or never listen to me again. I mean, that's absolutely fine. If you're making your FPL decisions solely on what I say, then you're probably not in for a great time anyway. No, I won't apologise for it or even worry that I was going to do anything else special. If I hadn't captained Duffy, I would have captained Son. He luckily came on and got an assist. And obviously right now, 8 points looks great versus the 2 for Duffy. And it was an interesting one because they had only conceded 5 goals, I think, in the previous 5 home games. And then they conceded 7 in 2 games. And I don't think I ever said the Bournemouth were on the beach, but they had been looking pretty poor recently. And they come and score 5 goals. I mean, I don't think anyone was expecting that. Obviously, hoping for a goal is always a stroke of, or a bit of luck in a double game week. You're hoping for a goal from one of 2 games. It may not happen. And then Cardiff to win 2-0 as well. It was a bit of a kick in the teeth. I thought the Cardiff game was the one more likely to get points from. And it just didn't happen. And maybe the signs were there. Maybe everyone that said no to Brighton before was a genius and they got it right. And look, if you said it beforehand, fair enough. If you're just being captain hindsight, I mean, what can you do? Everyone knows it was a bad mistake after it happened. So look, we'll move on. Hopefully Game Week 35 will be better. But yes, Duffy was a massive train wreck. I suppose the question is, what will I do next time? I feel like there's only a defender to captain from a double game week. Because I don't like captaining single game week players. But I think if Son wasn't kind of due a rest, or I didn't think he would have been, or I thought he was going to be rested, and if I didn't think that, I would have captained him. Probably been a bit happier about captaining against Huddersfield. Obviously, the big play was to go Mora. I hardly ever considered him. So for those that went Mora, fair play. And if you captained him, even better. So there were points to be had. My top scorer was Mane with only 9 points. So look, maybe next time I'd have to look away from double game week players, but it's not the way I like to play the game, so I don't find it that likely that I'll do that. But yeah, Duffy, an absolute train wreck. To look through kind of the rest of my team, where was Lacazette? Fully rested, which I wouldn't usually mind, but I had Doherty coming off the bench for no points because DFA missed out as well. And to be honest, that was a bit of a last minute change. I just had a hunch about keeping Lacazette for the double. And obviously I'm hoping that he got fully rested because he is the number 1 striker still. So we'll have to see what happens after the Europa League. I'm recording this before Man City, Spurs and Liverpool play. So I don't know what's going to happen with the rest of Europe. Obviously I know that Man United are out. But not sure about the other 3. And obviously Arsenal got Europa League. So hopefully he was rested because he's first choice and he'll get a decent amount of minutes over the double. DFA I put in because it was said that he was training. I didn't think I needed him this week. I had Redmond there all week. And annoyingly now, Redmond would have come on for Lacazette, but whatever, you can't guarantee those points. So in the end, I had Doherty coming off, so hopefully Lacazette's back. I picked Aguero, swapped him from Sterling after the stream. Sterling went nuts. De Bruyne did stuff as well. In the end, I went Lacazette over De Bruyne. So I just got a few, I don't even know if you call them 50-50 calls, but I just got a few calls wrong and it's frustrating. But at least Game Week 34, a lot of people had bad game weeks, whereas in Game Week 35, if I can pull it back with the bench boost, then it won't feel so bad. We'll have to see. Liverpool cruising, even against Chelsea 2-0. Great defensive options. Salah scoring again, Mane scoring again. Cardiff and Huddersfield coming up next. Not more to say about them. Get them in if you don't have them. Son's crying, obviously didn't start. A lot of people captain him, like I said, but he did come on and get points. And the way the week went, that wasn't actually that bad in the end. Wolves not looking great against Southampton. Little worry that this is kind of what they're going to be like now after the FA Cup upset. But I don't know. I'm hoping they still turn it around. But it was a bit frustrating. They hardly turned up at all. Obviously, Doherty getting nothing. Jota Jimenez just getting 2 and 1. And as I already spoke about, Mora was great and Redmond was frustrating. So let's put Game Week 34 to bed. It was awful. We made some mistakes. I made some mistakes. Let's talk about Game Week 35. Hopefully this week will offer some more returns. I've got my bench boost activated at the moment, like plenty of people will have. There is some discussion in the community about whether we should cancel it this week. and maybe use it next week, especially maybe for those with 2 or 3 Brighton players, or if you've got triple captain left over. For me, yes, Brighton are now obviously a massive worry, conceding 7 in 2 games, and they've got Wolves and Spurs, who you can't see them keeping a clean sheet against. I mean, I never thought they would anyway. Obviously, the hope is there that they can get at least appearance points from both games and get 4 points, and maybe a clean sheet, or even better, a goal. And at the moment, we're not really sure if that's going to happen. So if you've got 3 Wolves players, Ryan, Duffy, and Dunk, I'd probably be a little bit worried. I mean, if you delay the bench boost, you could wait till game week 36 when they've just got Newcastle at home. Arguably a chance of a clean sheet there versus the double game week, but obviously you only get 1 shot at that. So for me, I've not really considered delaying it. Even if I was going for triple captain, when I talk about captaincy later, it's super tricky this week. I don't know if there's a massive standout option. I put a tweet out asking about who people FPL managers were going to captain, and there was lots and lots of variety and lots of choice. Now that might turn around by Friday and start narrowing down to a bit of a template choice, but right now it's kind of all over the place. So I wouldn't be too sure about triple captain, but if you are, then you could delay it till next week, because I've got Lloris on the bench and he's got Man City away. Obviously Mane's on the bench, but he's only got 1 game and he's going to have only 1 game next week. So there is a little bit of I suppose, good reason to delay it, but I'll definitely be playing it. I'll probably use my transfer to get rid of Dunk, which just leaves me with Duffy. So only 1 Brighton player, and he does have goal threat. So then I'd be happy enough if you could get a goal. Obviously, not looking good for points at the moment, but fingers would be crossed. Deeney replaces, obviously, if you've got Deeney in your wildcard, it's super frustrating to have to use a transfer on him. Like I said, I'm going to use one anyway this week, but obviously a lot of people didn't want to, and they created their wildcards to save it for game week 36. But he's going to have to be replaced now, especially if you're on bench boost. So there's a few options to look at. Llorente is only 5.1 million, Man City away and Brighton at home. The question for me is, will he keep his place? He played against Huddersfield and looked good. Should have arguably had more points. Now, in the Champions League tonight, again, I've not seen the result. Maybe there'll be a key injury to like Son or Mora, which will change my thinking around this. So if one of those gets injured, then Llorente will play most games, you'd imagine. But they've gone with Ali Eriksson. Ali's back. Ali Eriksson, Son, and Mora. And I think that's their best attack while Kane is out. Arguably, you could add Lamella in there somewhere maybe, but I don't think Llorente is the one up front. Maybe if a team sits back, he might be good as like a target man. But generally, Mora offers pace, and Son can get in behind as well. So I quite like that front kind of 4. So against Man City away in the league, maybe Llorente will play because they'll be knackered after the Champions League. But against Brighton at home, I'm just not sure if he comes in. Maybe that will be the game because of the target man aspect. And arguably, if you just get him in for bench boost, for example, he could then be your bench fodder at 5.1, and you play other 7 attackers. So if you only need him for this week, he could be a good option. Moving on to the other options, I mean, I've got Glenn Murray written down. I mean, I've also got LOL written next to that because I didn't even fancy him for their great game week 34 double game week, so I definitely don't fancy him for this one. So he's out of the question. Wilson and King, if you don't want a double game week play, they got Fulham at home. It doesn't get much better than that. Then Southampton, Spurs, and Palace. So a tricky enough end to the season, but Fulham at home looks really good in game week 35. Obviously, they've just put 5 goals against Brighton. Zaha, another option, although this week his fixture's pretty tricky. Arsenal away, but they haven't been great for clean sheets this season, so you could look at him. Then it's Everton, Cardiff and Bournemouth to end the season. If Palace are well and truly safe by that point, I think Bournemouth at home is a pretty decent last day fixture. And obviously Zaha, very good for winning penalties. Don't laugh, I mentioned him in the last video, but Shane Long as well. Again, if you just want him for the bench boost, then a 4.6 million bench fodder, it's pretty decent if you're playing 3-5-2. Or you've got Ings, Newcastle away and Watford away, not the best. But Shane Long has scored 2 now in the last 2 games, even though the last one was from the bench. But maybe a little bit of form for 4.6 million. You're not risking too much. Although granted, he might not be the best bench boost option. And then a lot of people looking at Andre Gray. I mean, there's a lot of, from Watford fans, they seem to be siding with not going for him, because a lot of the time when Deeney doesn't play, Success plays instead, just because of the way they're kind of set up. And he plays with one other. Now, to be fair, Andre Gray has been playing more with Deeney recently than maybe someone like Deulofeu, but Deulofeu came on in the FA Cup semi-final and played really, really well. So maybe he'll now get into the team if he's fully fit. So we're really going to have to wait for the press conference there. But I'd be a bit worried about Gray. I'd probably lean towards someone like Llorente, Wilson, Zaha, or if you've got a bit of money, you could even upgrade to Rashford, which we'll talk about Man United assets in a minute. What to do with Brighton defence? I mean, they've already talked about it. I think if you've got the money in the transfer, I'd probably get rid of Dunk. Duffy, I don't think is as much of a sell, because After the double game week, at the end of the day, they got Newcastle at home. You could play them in that fixture. You can bench them. I don't think there's too much of a worry. I'm going to probably get rid of Dunk for a Liverpool defender or a Man City defender or something like that. But I'm not going to worry about having Duffy as well. So unless you've got a triple up, in which case I could see why you'd want to get rid, I'd probably look at keeping. I don't know if they're massively due a sale right now. Bench boost may be a bit different. If you're not bench boosting, definitely not, unless you've got money to spare. Is Eriksen due a rest? So like I just spoken about for the Spurs game, so they've started with Eriksen, Ali, Son, and Moira. Now Eriksen's played a lot of games. I think he's played 90 minutes every game for like the last 12 game weeks or something, which is great because he's a 90-minute man. That's what you want in your team. He's essential to how they play. He's kind of the creative spark in that midfield. But at the same time, they've got a pretty difficult run now. Man City, then Man City again, then Brighton. He could miss that Man City game away. Now, given that they're going for top 4, you'd hope that he would play. So I'm not saying get rid of him. I just think maybe if you're bringing him in, perhaps there's better options. But if he does play that Brighton game, then that looks really good for points. So I'm happy enough with him, but I've seen a few people talking about him maybe getting rested after the lineup tonight. So just be wary about that, I guess. I don't know if I'd want to be putting a captaincy on him necessarily. Are Man United options, or are they options after the Champions League exit? They lost 3-0 to Barcelona. They were awful. Apart from the first couple of minutes, just never looked like getting going. Obviously, they're not playing Barcelona in the league. They do have to play Man City soon. So it's not looking great for them in the double game week. So it's Everton away and then Man City at home. And to be honest, they just not looked very good recently. Obviously, Solskjaer had such a good start, and it all seems to be going a bit downhill. Now, all the kind of media and stuff are, well, he needs this much money. Is he going to get it? Does he even have the power? Is Pogba the kind of power player there who's basically making all the decisions? And it's just all going a bit downhill at the wrong time, especially with a pretty difficult fixture. And let's not forget, Everton have had a lot of clean sheets recently. Everton away and Man City at home. I'm just not sure about them. But then Pogba showed against West Ham that all he needs is penalties. Rashford's only 7-odd million. Martial, I think, will play the majority of games now going forward. Sanchez, I've written down now. I'm not seriously suggesting people get Sanchez in, but given that he's back and he got a few minutes against Barcelona, he might get used a bit more. They need to change something up. It is not working at the moment, whatever they play. Lukaku could come back into the side and Rashford go out. So for me, I would be a bit worried about bringing them in. I think Rashford does tend to play if he's fit, either wide or up front. So it's a bit of a punt for Deeney. I don't think it's the worst choice. Obviously, Man City will also have had Champions League, and they've got a tough game against Spurs as well. And obviously, they're fighting for the league. So that could be a bit of a tense one for Man City. You never know. So potentially Man United are options, but I wouldn't want to be putting too much on them right now. They're just not in a good place, and they don't really have the fixtures to turn that around like they did when Solskjaer first came in. What to do about Man City? Look, I got it wrong with Man City. I went Aguero instead of Sterling and De Bruyne. De Bruyne looking really good at the moment for his price as well, 9.7. I think you can't argue against Sterling. Sterling and Aguero are the two that I would want. Aguero keeps starting, and I think that will continue. Pep will manage his minutes where he can get him off at 60 or 70 minutes. But it just doesn't look like he wants to play Jesus. And they've got two big games coming up in the league. Again, maybe after we've watched this video, we'll know the Champions League and it'll be a different story. Maybe something big will have happened in that. But I just think he's going to keep playing. So he looks good. Sterling looks good. And De Bruyne. So I think I'm a bit annoyed at myself, or maybe not annoyed, just kind of regretting basically not getting 2 or 3 of them on wildcard, because they can do the business against the top teams, and they got a pretty nice end to the season as well. So I'm kind of ruined not doing that. I'm hoping that there'll be some rotation. Sterling's played a lot of minutes recently, and it is tough fixtures, but both of them have got pretty good points per game against the top 6. So they could be really good assets this week. I wouldn't really be put off playing them. If Sterling gets another 90 minutes, then that would worry me a little bit. But generally, I think for the rest of the season, they're gonna be pretty good. Aguero especially is gonna keep getting minutes, I think. Wolves turn it around. I kind of already spoken about it. Obviously, Doherty, Jota, and Jimenez. I mean, to be fair, saying they were poor against Southampton. Southampton have been good since the new managers come in, and they got Brighton at home and Arsenal at home. So good fixtures, I think, for them. Arsenal kept their first away clean sheet against Watford last week, but I'm not sure they'll be able to do that to Wolves And also Wolves will probably be able to play on the counter against Arsenal, which will suit them as well. And obviously Jimenez has done well against top 6 teams. Jota's been in pretty good form at home as well. So I'm happy enough with them. And after the double game, they've got Watford, Fulham and Liverpool. So Watford and Fulham are happy with. They'll want to get one over on Watford, I think, after the FA Cup semi-final. Fulham at home is a great fixture. So it's really just the Liverpool game. By then, if they're still playing rubbish, we can use transfers to get rid of them potentially. But I'm pretty hopeful they'll turn it around. So much so, kind of going into captaincy, I've got my captaincy on Jimenez. He's been so good for Wolves all year. So good against the top 6. So that's who I'm currently captaining. Now, as I said earlier, I put this out on Twitter, and people were kind of all over the place with who they're going to go for. And I've got so many names written down, I don't even think I can nail it down to just one decent captain. I think it's going to be really tough this week. Now, that's interesting, because if you nail it this week, now obviously nailing the captain every week is super important, but if you nail it this week and other people get it wrong, because there's going to be a variety, I think, then it could be really big rank increases. Now, I will say on stuff like Fantasy Football Scout with the captaincy poll, Jimenez is top, so he is the most popular at the moment there. So maybe I've actually gone for a bit of a template choice, even though he's been locked in as my captain since the deadline went past on Gameweek 34, and I could set my team up. But other options to consider, obviously, if you wanted to go for a single game week player, then Mane and Salah against Cardiff could be huge scores, even without a double game week. I think they both look good. Arsenal, Palace at home and Wolves away. Now, the tough one there is who's going to play both games. I think Lacazette got a good chance of minutes in both games. Aubameyang, especially if he gets rested in Europe as well. And Ramsey's been getting a good few minutes recently as well. So I like him as an outside pump, but I think that is a bit of a pump for captaincy. So not 100% sure on Arsenal. Man City, look, if you think they're going to get points against the top 6 teams, Spurs and Man United, then why not go for them? Their points per game are decent no matter who they play. Always going to be tougher against the top 6, but again, Spurs will be knackered. You'd imagine after the Champions League game. Man United have not been defensively sound at all this season, really, especially not in recent weeks as well. So although it's away, Man City have done the business at Old Trafford plenty of times before. And if they nick an early goal, the way Man United have been defending recently, and even De Gea is making mistakes and has been all season, I really don't think a Man City player is the worst shout. So definitely consider them. Spurs, I feel like you're putting a lot of kind of money on the Brighton game. I'm not convinced they're going to get much of Man City. I think I could easily see Man City keeping a clean sheet there. But Brighton have been, as we've said, 7 goals in 2 games. If Son and Moura are on it, there could definitely be points there. So I think if you think a Spurs player is going to play twice, which I think someone like Son could do now he's had a bit of a rest again, then he could be a really nice option this week. Otherwise, yeah, Wolves, like I've already said. And Watford, outside bets. Obviously, you're not too sure about the striker situation. And DFA, will he be fit? Maybe a defender, if you wanted to put yourself through a defender captaincy again. Then Southampton at home and Huddersfield away is not the worst. I'm not sure I would do that. So I've got mine on Jimenez because I think he'll play both games. And he's been so good this year. I don't want to put too much emphasis on kind of playing both games, because I think that's actually really hard to determine this week. And I think Lacazette, Aguero, Eriksen and Son, who are in my team, could all have good minutes in both games. So I'm on Wolves right now, and I've even considered Jota, although I think Jimenez has just been the man for me all season and has been the man all season for Wolves, so he'll probably be who I go for. But it's tricky, yeah. Let me know in the comments below who you're going for. There's loads of options, and for me, no real standout this week. I think you can make cases for a lot of players. Obviously, if you've got any comments about what I've said, if you think it's wrong, or you've got any other questions, let me know in the comments section below. Hit a like on the video if you've enjoyed it. As always, it's always appreciated. And subscribe if you're new around here. I've got fingers crossed that Gameweek 35 is going to be much better for us. Gameweek 34 was a train wreck. Either way, I'll be streaming at 9 PM on Thursday night just for any last minute questions before the deadline. But other than that, I will see you for Game Week 36, and hopefully I'll be giving good news and we'll have had a good result. Like, comment, share, subscribe and all that good stuff. Catch you next time.